about, Jeff, you talk about influencing and Memphis Wrestling, the influence of other people, and that we're responsible, and I appreciate that, and you're right, you're looking at a group of guys that all have a long history of Memphis Wrestling, but Memphis Wrestling is this man right here.
Oh,
none of us would be here today if it wasn't for this man right here, Lance Russell and Dave Brown, and doing what he did for Memphis Wrestling. I mean, I was like you, Jeff. I was just a kid sitting at home, you know, on Saturday mornings watching Lance and Dave. And one day, I don't know, I still don't know what made me, possessed me to do it, but I drew some cartoons of wrestlers that looked something like this, or like I have downstairs, and sent them into the TV station. And this guy right here showed my pictures on TV, and a couple of weeks later called me up and said, hey, some of the wrestlers like your drawing, why don't you come over and do some more? And that's how I got to go and actually be on television for the first time.
Yes, you were.
And meet Jackie Fargo, who wanted me to do some drawings and everything. So literally, without a doubt, if it wasn't for Lance Russell being so kind to me, I might be here at this Popcon, but I'd be down there drawing pictures of Superman or Batman or whatever. I would have turned out being an artist or doing something totally different. But Lance has had such a big influence on everybody that's here, and he is and was Memphis and Evansville Saturday morning wrestling. This guy right here.
That's right.
Well, I got to tell you one thing. This is a perfect opportunity with a little forum here for me to say that while I was there and my job was to make comments and various things like that, we did, and we had such terrific aid in all of the things that these guys not only would say, would do, and the way they approached their job and the way they went through that hellish effort of what it took to be a professional wrestler in the Memphis market. And brother, let me tell you, it was different there than any place I've ever seen. I haven't been to as many places as a lot of people have, but I did go down to Atlanta and got hooked up with WCW, and I talked with and worked with a lot of guys, good guys. And the question that these guys always ask, what in the world makes you think that Memphis is any different than any place else in wrestling? And it was a question that came up from the fans. What is it that makes people talk about Memphis wrestling? Because it was totally different in attitude and all. I'm not going to say that there wasn't some other guys that were dedicated to the business, but let me tell you, nobody had the dedication that these guys did when they came out with something as simple. We were talking about it, I think, last night, Doug, about you put the ladders up, you put the scaffold match. Scaffold match is the little problem right up here every time.
He said that.
But let's not even remember something I was trying to remember before I could, so it's not that much of a problem.
He remembered the guy's name.
Yeah. Where he lives.
Yeah, where he lives. But it's true, the scaffold match gives you an idea. You have no idea. And I say, because I had no idea until the night in the Coliseum that they were doing the scaffold match. And they went in there and put these things up. And I got there, hey, half hour earlier or whatever, came from the station and out there. Went in, I just had in my soul to find out what in the world is all this scaffold match type thing. So I started climbing that.
Now, he's telling me this last night, and I said, really, Lance? And he says, yeah, and he says he gets to the top, and I remember what he's talking about tonight, and the scaffold looked like it was 100 foot up in the air.
And you won't believe it. And it wasn't a question that these guys were getting up there and going through the motions and doing that. Of course, Bill Dundee had the advantage because this guy had been climbing on surface stuff all of his life, and he got up and ran around like a little monkey up there. and he's going around behind goosing all the other guys. And they were taking their lives in their hands every step they took.
I was just looking at it. This is probably a 10-foot ceiling, I would imagine, isn't it? And that's how high the scaffold was off the ring floor. So it would be the bottom. So the guys were standing and wrestling on top of a little narrow scaffold about this wide, 10 feet off the ground. And you know and the object was to knock your opponent or throw your opponent off onto the ground. Yeah, Bill was probably one of the masters at that. And there's a story that goes along with Paul Heyman.
That's what we were talking about last time. Lance was talking about.
Paul dangerously allowed us to, he was managing somebody, and he had cut all of these promos and interviews about how how he was going to perform in this scaffold match, how he was going to get up there and throw everybody off, and he was a guy that nobody had really touched at the time, and so everybody really came out to see him get thrown off of this 10-foot high scaffold. Yeah. And then we get there that night, and he says, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm afraid of heights. I can't go up there." I said, "Paul, we got a sold-out crowd out here. I think Louisville Gardens where that one happened." Yeah. I said, "We got a sold-out crowd out here. You got to go up there." He said, "Oh no, I can't." So anyway, I don't know, can't remember exactly how, but I think I punched him. And he said it broke his jaw. I don't know if that's the truth or not. But anyway, that was, what Lance is referring to though is there was a kind of such a mixture of characters. Like you said, Bill Dundee. Bill will be the first to tell you. I mean, Bill came from a circus background. I mean, he was one of these stories of kids that ran away with the circus when he was a kid, and then coming into wrestling from that background. Handsome Jimmy, one of the most colorful and creative characters I've ever seen. But and Doug's brother Eddie, all of these guys came together down there in Memphis at a time where they all had input and they all had these creative ideas. And of course Jerry Jarrett was he was a very creative guy too. And it was like you said, Lance. The difference was, I think, in most of the other countries or territories around the country, these guys were still just going in there and doing straight wrestling. I mean, every match was, headlocks and hip toss and body slams and everything. Yeah. And we, for some reason, I guess it was just the cast of characters, added this, hey, what if the match spilled out of the ring and went back to the concession stand and the guys fought all over the concession stand? Or what if we built a scaffold and the match took place 10 feet off the air? All of these kind of ideas came together really from the wrestlers that were around at that period of time, and that's what made it different and made it so so unique, I think.
You remember how the scaffold match took place, the first one?
No, I don't.
Jerry Jarrett lied to you and me.
Imagine that.
That was in Louisville.
That he did the first scaffold match with Don Green, which was not a lie.
That he did do the first, didn't he?
Yeah, a 6-foot ladder, 2 6-foot ladders.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Well, that's still technically a scaffold.
Oh, yeah, I mean, technically it was, but it wasn't the thing that we did.
Right.
So I said, did you do it? Yeah, we did a real scaffold. So that's how the first one comes. Will you do it? I said, yeah, Coco and me was the first one.
Yeah.
So this thing was away. So somebody gave me the tape of that thing. I damn near got fired for this. Remember when we used to go to Dallas on the bus, went in Jennings
yeah,
sure. Shot of the bus? I played the tape on the 6-foot ladder.
Oh, Jerry and Don Green.
Don Green. They never stood up. They sat on a plank.
Yeah,
the two guys stood on the ladder. He's away in the back, in the bedroom back, and he has his cup of spit. At the back, and there's no smile. There is no nothing. Oh, well, this is no good. All the way to Dallas. So when we get to Dallas, he said, "Can I talk to you a minute?" Oh, here we go. He's sending me home on the Greyhound bus. He ain't taking me back. And he said, "Where'd you get that tape?" I said, "Well, somebody gave it to me, and I read it up there." He said, "Would you burn it?" So anyway, the story he told just wasn't quite what he said that happened on the tape.
Well, I think this is supposed to be a question and answer, but one of the other things I wanted to get to really quickly was when I talked about, and Lance talked about the different individuals and the characters that came through. And we call it Memphis Wrestling because, we did the show every Saturday morning live for 90 minutes in Memphis, and that was then taped and bicycle wrestling. You guys in Evansville got the exact same show that we did in Memphis the following week, a week later. You know, we weren't able to go to, so at one time, a long time ago, we did a lot of live TV shows. I remember when I first started,
My dad was with you.
yeah, my gosh, me and his dad, Tommy Gilbert,
3 TV.
we would do, well, 4.
Oh, 4.
They had a live TV in Jackson, Tennessee. We started like 9 o'clock in the morning doing a TV, and this is before we were good enough to make Memphis TV. But we started doing a live TV show and have a match at 9 o'clock in the morning in Jackson, Tennessee, jump in our car, drive to Nashville at like 1 o'clock in the little afternoon or so, and do a live TV show in Nashville, have a match, jump in our car, drive down to Chattanooga, get out, go in and have a live TV show in Chattanooga and have matches, and then get out of there, jump in a car, and drive to Birmingham at 10:30 that night and have another live TV show.
One day.
Yeah, four live TV shows in 3 different states in one day. So
Now,
that
is that creativity
Yeah.
or is that creativity?
yeah, like Bill said, you made $15.
Yeah, Nick Douglas. Hey boys, not how much money you make, what you say?
Yeah, right. That's just when the King and my dad was starting. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I did
You
that.
didn't have sweet developmental deals and all
Oh,
that
no.
good stuff, and
No.
guarantees and.
Sure.
No, nothing like that. But what I was getting to was a part about the different characters, and I even wrestling there had my favorite people to work with, and I think one of the reasons that I've stayed this long and has had such a lure to me, because I'm still as big a fan as I was when I was just watching Lance on Saturday morning. Even when I got in the business, Don and Al Green used to threaten to slap me when I was just, the first thing I got to do was referee, and they used to threaten to slap the smile off my face because I couldn't quit smiling. I mean, even imagine, I was so happy to be inside the wrestling ring, to be in wrestling, I was just smiling all the time. But some of my favorite, I was still remained a fan of characters, and one of my all-time favorite guys to ever come through Memphis and Evansville was this guy right over here. I mean, the weird thing that nobody would ever believe was that in the locker room, or about 23 hours a day, this is how Handsome Jimmy always was. But when he got in front of the TV camera, or when he got into the ring, then he became Handsome Jimmy Valiant. And this guy, nobody made a better interview than this guy, and so much charisma in the ring, and I love him.
I love you, brother. Hey, thank you so much, King. You know, brother, I tell you, I've been quite a few different places myself, but Memphis, every time this man was in charge, his brain is so, he can do it all, of course, in the ring, you all know that, but in the back, in the office and whatever, when he had the book, or when he was in charge, brother, he'd bring me in and I'd make nothing but money. And I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. He fed my family so many years, and Fish, man, I talk about my book, man. I put you over, man, and I mean every word I said, man. He is the king. Give the king a
My favorite story, one day we would go to drive to towns, like, I think maybe we might have been leaving Memphis to drive to Evansville or something, and Handsome, he never drove anywhere. He would have a ride with you, but he wouldn't drive anywhere, right? So I'm picking Handsome up one day, and I'm sitting there waiting for him, and I'm sitting waiting, and I had the windows down on the car, and so I didn't even see him come up, and all of a sudden the door opens real quick, and he sits down and he says, "Let's go, brother, let's go." What's the hurry? Yes, just let's go. And about that time, a big high heel shoe with a spike heel on about this way came flying through the window, right past Handsome's face, right past my face, and out the other window. And I went, "Whoa!" I see what you mean. I hit the gas, and who was that was throwing the shoe at you, Handsome?
Big Mom.
Big Mama. She was hot at me, man. She was hot at me. She came in like a boomerang, and went right out the other side. You know, went like this. Timing, boom, boom, boom. Hey, he took off then, brother. She came from a pool. She had a bikini on, and just one shoe. I said, "She's gonna throw the other one, man." We left, man. I said, "I'll be back, baby. I'll see you about 6 in the morning." It's been a long trip, man.
Here's a car story. Then he calls me up. It's winter day, snow. He says, hey, how you going to have it? I said, well, want to ride with me? Yeah. Your big new Lincoln. Oh, this would be great. I'd ride with the kid. His big Lincoln. I look at the door. He's in a friggin' red Corvette. I said, what?
Handsome Jimmy's blood red Corvette.
Yeah. He said, get in. Are we going? Yeah, we're going this. So looks like it's going to start to snow a little bit. I look at the gas and say, man, we need some gas, man. We're going down Gallatin Road. That friggin' car wasn't going side, but turned all the way around, slid in, and then hit the gas pump. Boom! He said, you want gas?
Like the Chevy Chase movie.
Are we taking the car? No, we're going in the Corvette. So anyway, we made it. Obviously, we're here.
You know, King bought that Corvette in Nashville, and he brought it into Memphis, and it's his title. So he gives it to me to ride around town, and I'd fly in, and they'd pick me up at the airport. I'd get in the Corvette driving in the Coliseum, so everybody is he painted my picture on the tags, New York City, boy from New York City, Handsome Jimmy on it. So then I put it up title for title against the Southern Heavyweight the belt. Title for title, brother. Well, after a couple times, one time when I flew in, I was so hungry, man, I pulled through a McDonald's, right? And got me a little something to eat.
Big Mac with some sesame seeds.
Yeah,
right?
Big Mac with the sesame seeds, and man, I was so hungry, I had to get there to do the show. And I did, and I guess a few of the seeds fell on the ground. So when I got back down, I drove it back to the airport, and Jimmy the Snake Hart picks it up. And the snake came back, and then he calls Lawler up, man, and he
panicked.
Oh, we got problems. What, Snake? Oh, Handsome Jimmy. He's smoking that dope weed. There's marijuana seeds all over. He's going to be trouble, Jerry. You better get rid of him now. I just came out, man. I just coming in, man. He's going to be nothing but trouble, man. He smokes that dope weed, brother. That cigarette, man. Oh, and it was them little sesame seeds from a Big Mac. Oh, brother.
I wanted to point out somebody back here, a friend of mine, Tim Tiffany, and she actually got the costume of Handsome.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. That's great.
Oh, very handsome.
You want to do some questions? Anybody got questions?
Yeah, I got a question. My question is for Doug and Brian. What was it like growing up in households with legends?
Well, I'm just being out here.
There's two sides to every story.
When I got in trouble, instead of the mother or the father using a regular belt, he pulled out the Southern Heavyweight title. No, but really, every boy, when they're growing up, they want to be what their father is, And so when I was growing up, probably about the 4th grade, when I was in the 4th grade, I started going to the Mid-South Coliseum. And I sat on the front row, and I watched the Rock and Roll Express and the Fabulous Ones and Bill and Handsome and everybody, So I saw everybody that came through, because anybody came through the Memphis territory, And so then the main event comes, and it's, always Jerry the King Lawler. And so I sat there just like every other fan, watching him, but, it just, inside me, I just couldn't wait for him to pull that strap, because I was, come on, Dad, you can do it, you can do it, and I'm like, wait, and everybody's watching me. They're, they're watching him, but then they're looking over at me to see my reaction, and I'm sitting there stone cold, just watching the match like me and my brother sat there forever, but then when I finally got into the wrestling business, or I wanted to be a professional wrestler, and I was 15 years old, and I had, went to a wrestling ring that was in somebody's backyard and started, messing around and wrestling around. And then a local wrestler said, why don't you come on down to, we got some wrestling at a high school coming up, and you can come down, we'll let you even come in the back in the dressing room. So I go to this local wrestling show, sit in the dressing room, and I'm watching the matches, and I'm saying, oh my gosh, these guys suck. Because I'm used to watching what happens on Monday night. So I'm telling my buddy over here, he's my best friend, I said, we could do better than this. And one of the wrestlers heard me talking. He said, oh, Lawler's boy over here says he could do better than us, what do y'all think about that? And I said, well, I'm just telling you, I know I'm better than that guy. And I promise you I'm better than that guy right there. So they let us borrow some boots and some tights, and I actually went out there and wrestled that night, and had only been in a wrestling ring maybe twice in my life in somebody's backyard. Wrestled around, had a little match, best match on the card, and then I took somebody videotaped it. I took it
now this is Brown's opinion, but go ahead, Brown.
Yeah. No. Took it to my dad, and I thought it was just going to be something that he was going to laugh at. But he watched the videotape, and then
he fainted.
When he got through watching it, he said, there's a wrestling company that makes tights and everything. They're called K&H, called a Hildegard. He said, you get you a mask, and you get you something that covers your whole body. I don't want any skin showing at all, okay? And then I'll let you come on down to Saturday morning and let you wrestle. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get to wrestle on Memphis TV. So I got me a mask, and I got me a whole outfit, covered all my skin, nothing could be seen. I show up and he said, whatever you do, when you're a block and a half away, I want you to put that mask on. I don't want you. He said, when you leave, you keep that mask on until you're about 2 blocks away. I don't want nobody to know that you're my son.
And for you not to talk to anybody also.
Right, yeah, not to talk to anybody.
Did I also tell you for that one to be Brown?
Yeah, he told me we were going to be calling shits. So anyway, I get to the dressing room. I get to the dressing room, and I'm sitting there, and I'm not talking to anybody, and I got my mask on because he told me to wear my mask. And then all of a sudden, Bill Dundee walks up to me, and he said, "You're not going to take your mask off, boy?" I sat there and shook my head no. And he said, "Oh, we got ourselves a Mexican shooter over there." The other wrestlers, they beat the snot out of me and my partner every week we showed up, and then it wasn't long before my dad took over the book, like they were talking about earlier, took over, and he let us take the mask off, and that's when I started becoming Brian Christopher. But growing up, he was the man. He was like Superman, so I always wanted to pattern my career after him, even though he wouldn't let me use the last name Lawler, Trademark,
I don't know where I got that. I think that came from doing things that you saw happen before you. I remember when I first started, as you said, Nick Goulas was the guy that owned the territory along with a guy named Roy Welch. And Roy Welch he was an ex-wrestler, came from this wrestling family out of Middle Tennessee, and he had a brother named Herb Welch, and then they had a son named Lester Welch, and then Lester had a son named Welch, but then I guess it was Buddy came up with it, or somewhere along the line he said, I'm going to use a different last name because this Welch is the name, the family wrestling name was something he didn't want to have to live up to, or he didn't want to use that as a crutch or whatever, that sort of thing. So he became Buddy Fuller, and then Robert Fuller and Ron Fuller, which were his sons. They're really, all their last name was actually Welch, and that just was, I think, where that came from with Brian, and the fact that, I really thought it would be easier on him to, not have to try to follow in the footsteps I just know that in the past, a lot of people, when they look at wrestlers' sons come along, they expect them to, be like their father or whoever their predecessor. And I just wanted Brian to be his own man and be an individual in the business, But I think everybody always knew that, pretty much knew that he was my son. You know?
No, because back then, you couldn't just jump on the internet and Google
Well, no, you're right,
somebody and
that's
find
true,
out
you're
that
right.
kind of stuff, you know. But you told me, you said, the kiss of death in the wrestling business is being a wrestler's son. And you said, if you really want the kiss of death, be a promoter's son. So he owned half of the company, so.
Well, look at Jeff Jarrett. He never got over to Mendy because of his father.
Right.
And then George Goulas with Nick was the same thing. He did what was right for you. Look at you now, big star.
And then Jamie Dundee.
Jamie
never got
Dundee.
over that.
But you know what? He wanted to be a black guy.
But I always look, I mean, going back to once again the fact that I always looked at things in this business from almost more from a fan standpoint than from a wrestler or a promoter or anything. And I had seen, like playing football, if the coach's son was on the team, he was the quarterback, and everybody always said, oh, well, he's that because he's the coach's son. And I just thought it was the same way in wrestling. I thought that the fans would look at it as saying, oh, he's Jerry Lawler's son, so he's going to get special treatment. He's going to win matches and that sort of thing. And I just, I thought it would be better for him, and I think it was, I guess, I don't know, if he didn't do that. But like Brian said, it was a different world back then without internet, and we were able to, the business was a little more protected and a little more secret than it is now. Now it's just wide open and everything's out there.
I'm glad you forgot who I was. I'll just say, you guys hated me because of the sheets.
Yeah.
I remember.
Oh, go.
This guy was one of the innovators of what we called in the wrestling business dirt sheets, and these guys would just go around and try to find out everything on the inside about wrestling, the wrestlers' personal lives. Huh?
I was more about. I like to claim that I did the first podcast. I did the cassettes.
You missed a lot of stuff.
But no, that was one of my questions. I know you guys protected the business so well, especially in Memphis. I think Eddie was one of the first guys who would talk openly with me, and Ed Gilbert.
Yeah.
How did that feel when Vince came out and said, "Oh, this is now sports entertainment"? I know Flair is kind of bitter about that.
Well, I don't know if you're bitter or not, but why would you want to go around and everybody thinks you're phony? I mean, way back, I was, well, he's a phony freaking wrestler. And some of us could wrestle and do other shit, but I mean, why? And then when Vince smartened the world, not just Vince or TV or whatever it was, everybody becomes right. Everybody here thinks they know about the wrestling business. And if you asked them to book a card, they would give you their version of it. Doesn't mean it would be right, wrong, or whatever. There used to be a formula to wrestling, and if you never went off it, it grew for 100 years before we got it. When Jackie Fargo was doing it and all that. Now people are adding, look at the stuff they're doing. They fly around over the top rope, they land, some of them getting hurt. What's it got to do with wrestling? They're very athletic, but you do that in the circus. You don't do that in a wrestling ring. There's nothing to do with wrestling. So people start giving their own opinion. I guarantee if you asked anybody here, a guy here, or even a woman that watched wrestling, they could book a match, or they could tell you they could do it, just because they think in their head what they would like to see. And that's what happened to the wrestling business. Oh, the freaking half of them are marked. It's still in it. They'll ask for your autograph, and then you have to work with them. Now you look at your opponent. Okay, well, here you go.
Well, you got to realize too, though, that Vince, the reason he made that decision was not at that time, not to do what he's doing now. I mean, Vince's mindset now is totally different. He really believes in his heart and soul that we are in the entertainment business. Just like if you watch, and what, in a sense of the word, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, people will say, "Oh, I don't watch wrestling because it's not real." I said, "Do you watch movies?" "Oh yeah." I said, "Well, when you see Tom Cruise holding on to the side of an airplane and falling," I said, "Do you think he's really doing that?" And they said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Well, it's entertainment. Just the way a wrestling show is just like going to see a movie or whatever." And that's the way Vince looks at it now. But in the beginning, the sole reason that he exposed the business, so to speak, was because of saving money on athletic commissions. The athletic commissions around the country were taking a big percentage of all the gates of all the shows, and including pay-per-views that Vince did. When finally he just went into them and said, these athletic commissions only took money from boxing and wrestling, and I think that was it. And so Vince went in and said, hey, we're not an athletic competition. It's a show. It's an exhibition. And so at that point, a lot of the athletic commissions kind of fell by the wayside or let wrestling out from underneath the thing, and that's why Vince did that, you know. So, but now we really are sports entertainment.
Right, yeah, but
I'll tell you what, I wrestled the Moondogs for 6 months straight, and that was real.
They didn't put you in it.
well, that's probably smart and bright, I think. But anyway, hey, you know, it depends on what you want to say, phony, or what people say phony or fake. That's what at times I question, because this, I mean, this is
Well, they come in there and backdrop.
well, no, this is 4 guys right here, the greatest that I've ever known that's ever Lance Russell. If a guy couldn't, if he stuttered all through, Lance Russell would give him through the interview and sell tickets for the show on TV. These 3 guys over here are all legends. But just freaking 3 weeks ago, now what's phony? He hit me so hard in the eye, my eye just got where it wasn't black the other day. So is that phony? I mean, what's phony and what's fake? I mean,
He told me he did it on purpose.
well, I'm sure he did, but that's all right. I probably deserved it.
So you're saying that when you and Eddie ran him over with the car, that was all CGI?
No.
No, but I'm gonna tell you, when we did run him over with the car, like I've told people before, I said, King Lawler was talking about, and Lance and Bill, Handsome and Brian, and seen so much stuff. Me and Brian grew up, he said in the 4th grade, he started going in kindergarten. I started going, me and Lance was talking about this when I was 5 years old. Known Lance ever since then, and we was trying to think of what we could do, in which Eddie had talked to Lawler, and we was talking about what hadn't been done. And Eddie said, well, I talked to him about maybe running over him with a car. I said, running over him with a car? I said, why don't we just shoot him? He said, well, it might take too long for him to come back. We shot. Well, after the day I walked back in the TV station, and he was laying on the floor, and people says phony and this and that, and he was laying on the floor with his hip popped out of socket. Later on, after he got better, he said, I might have been better off if y'all did shoot me. So, I mean, that's my only deal with, I mean, it's sports entertainment, and I go along with that and everything. But as far as somebody saying, I remember if somebody would have said fake to these guys years ago, or my dad or something, they'd have got slapped right on the ground or punched right in the face, and they would never say it.
Didn't David Schultz do it to Stossel? He asked the question, is it fake? And is that fake?
Yeah. And then John Stossel will tell you, I got a house on the French Riviera.
Right.
And you know, you talk about, we used to try things that we would be influenced by things that you would see, and like Eddie said, you would try to think of something that hadn't been done before. And this, in Memphis and Evansville, it got to a point where you couldn't think of anything that hadn't been done before, you know. But like you said, I mean, running over somebody in the parking lot with cars, and then
how about Joe LeDuc picking you up and?
Yeah, Joe LeDuc. And what about Joe LeDuc, you know, taking an axe and sawing his arm and split his arm open and things like that?
And what about Bam Bigelow taking Lawler and freaking just all of a sudden picking him straight up suplex? And I thought, what's going on here? Like Brian's freaking sitting somewhere on one side of the ring, I'm sitting somewhere on the other, and freaking just drops him right across the freaking rail.
I had no idea that was going to happen.
I thought,
but what I was getting at was when, if anybody remembers the old TV show Dallas, when JR got shot, who shot JR was the big controversy. If you remember, Jerry Jarrett he came in and sat us down one day, and he wanted to shoot one of us. He said, we can do what we can do here, like we'll hold our arm out like this and hold the gun, and then we'll... Wait a minute. Yeah, who's going to get shot, me or you? He said, well, he said, I think it'd be better if you got shot. Now, wait a minute. Let's shoot you. And so we went back and forth like that.
And there's a lot of people want to shoot. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, just boys,
But anyway, yeah, we did almost everything. Because we were a weekly, you know, we had to come up with a 90-minute show every Saturday.
Who come up with a cowbunga karate turtle?
You? Yeah, you did. What's your buddy?
The champion?
Chris Champion.
Oh my God.
No, that was one of the other things that I'll admit, I was just thinking about that because I saw Freddy Krueger downstairs. Who is your dad? Your dad was Freddy Krueger for us there for a while. Like I said, I was a big fan, not only of That's why I love coming to things like this, Popcon. I was a pop culture fan. I was a monster
And,
movie
and,
fan.
and nobody would believe this, and Jerry will tell you, and I actually watched when I was a kid, like they would have all these different things, and he would be half of them. I would think, I cannot believe this. Here he's dressing up as, I mean, he's in the main event, the top guy, I mean, forever, and here he's putting on costumes and going out, and he's the mummy, he was the mummy, he was about 5 or 6 different monsters, and I thought, because he's got to love this type of stuff, because he would go out and wrestle as these creatures when he didn't have to, and could have got somebody else to, but he don't. He loved that type of stuff, and like I said, y'all know about him being a great artist and everything, but he loves the stuff like that. That's
Superheroes and monsters. I was
Right.
a big fan of that. And wrestlers.
Whatever was famous and whatever was going on.
Yeah, hot. You capitalized.
Yeah, you turned me into a new kid on the block.
And then we created PG-13 and Rock and Roll Express and the Fabulous Ones. I mean, all of these things were just gimmicks that we put on people.
Barbarian, Kamala, you did it all.
Yeah, Kamala.
That was all from King.
I saw Kamala. I saw a comic book. This artist that Frank Frazetta, who's a famous artist, has passed away now, but he did this great painting of a beautiful woman like tied to a stake, and a bunch of cannibals were around her, and this guy was like fighting off these cannibals, and I saw this one cannibal, and it just made an impression on me. And one day this big old black guy come up to me behind at the Coliseum, tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around and I looked up, and he had the most southern accent. He was from Senatobia, Mississippi. And he said, Mr. Jerry, my name is Sugar Bear Harris, and I'd like to wrestle for you. And all of a sudden, that picture of that cannibal popped up. And I said, has anybody seen you here tonight? He said, no, sir. I said, well, you can meet us tomorrow in Nashville, Tennessee. And we took him up, and in one day, cut out a loincloth, put it around him, found that Jerry Jarrett had a big old African shield hanging on his wall. I brought that picture that Frank Frazetta painted of the cannibal. I painted James Sugar Bear Hair or something like that. We walked him out in this old swamp-looking lake behind Jerry Jarrett's house, and we threw in some big chunks of dry ice and this smoke started coming up, and he just walked out of that lake up into the camera, and I looked into National Geographic. This was the time, because like Brian said, what was hot then was, if you remember, the president of Uganda was a guy named Idi Amin, and he was a legit cannibal. I mean, that was in the news all over the place. This president of this country was a cannibal, and so we made Kamala the Ugandan giant, and he was a cannibal, and brought him in and sold out immediately with him. And of course, you know, he went on to have a big run in the WWE with Hulk Hogan and all those guys.
And the body ain't though. You had, when we first saw him, he had one of them Afro haircuts. With Kamala had bald.
Yeah.
He says, the hair gonna go.
Yeah, we had a suit.
And then he painted the gimmick on him. Big kid sitting like this.
I got a question.
Hang on a minute, I'm not done.
You tell the story, but I'll explain. The cannibal in the picture had it's like a big white star painted on the side of his head. He had white teeth, jagged teeth painted here. He had a white star on this pec, a white star here, and a big yellow crescent moon on his stomach. So I would paint that on Kamala, on James Harris, every night, because he couldn't learn until he learned how to do it himself.
But the first thing he does, we're at the office, Jerry, of course, he gets all the things. Jerry, why'd you paint that banana on me?
He said, why does you paint a banana on my stomach every night? I said, James, that's not a banana. It's a crescent moon. We had some great characters.
I know you guys had like your favorite people to work with, no matter what. You knew it was going to be a good match, and your worst person that you absolutely didn't even want to work with. Who was your favorites and worsts?
Well, I didn't have no bad one because I could make them all look good.
Good answer.
Yeah. But my favorite one, I guess, was the King here, and I like working with Handsome. Well, all the guys here, because we could all do it. So it was a little different. You didn't have to pick and choose. You at least knew you was going to get a good match or do whatever. So I never really went to the ring dreading it. You?
No.
Except you were right hand occasionally.
My favorites usually came from, the reason they were my favorites literally was because I was a fan of their interviews or their talk. That's why Handsome Jimmy was always one of my favorites. Joe LeDuc with his crazy interviews. Austin Idol made a fantastic interview. And then a guy came along that I loved to work with, and he got very little credit for how good he was Troy Graham. Oh my gosh, he cut a great promo and everything. But then, of course, Bill, like I said, they were your favorites for different reasons.
I guess we should take
Do
questions.
you remember?
Yeah, I have a question. Billy Robinson?
Yes, sir.
Sure, yeah. He just passed away not too long ago.
I just wondered what your experience was like with him. My coach trained with him for about 5 years. He kind of sent me up here to kind of ask you guys if you remember.
Well, to me, I wrestled Billy a few times, and it was like, I'm not going to say he was one of my least favorite, but I mean, I was never, like Bill was saying a while ago, I mean, I was never really a technical wrestler, so to speak. I was in the business, I would consider a walk and talk brawler or something like that. I wasn't really a good catch-as-catch-can, know all the holds, know all the moves. I mean, I've been in, I can't tell you how many matches where somebody would go behind me and put me in an arm bar and then say reverse it, and I don't know how. I just was not good, but Billy Robinson was classic.
Yes,
I mean, you know, he was one of the best at that. And so I always felt, I mean, I didn't like to work with guys like that. I was intimidated and felt foolish or stupid, you know, being in the ring with somebody that could really do all of that.
And he could really do.
Oh yeah, Billy Robinson.
He'd kill you.
Remember Tony Charles too?
Bill, I was
Charles,
just gonna
another
say,
one.
Bill,
Yeah.
tell them about the Tony Charles Jackson, Tennessee match.
Jackson match.
That was
In the
a great
whole
match.
thing.
If you all watch that DVD, you'll see Tony doing this at the end of the thing. He's doing like this. But he's really doing it to Robert Fuller, because Robert told me he wasn't going to take the match and he was leaving.
He wasn't gonna do the match if he'd take that match.
Yeah, that's what he kind of
So
said.
that's what
Robert
Robert
did.
lied to it, is what he did.
He wasn't going to do the finish. It was,
Yeah.
I did his finish on him.
Right.
Remember that? So when he realized what we was doing, he was that much of a pro. He said, that mother. And if he just said it to me in the ring, we went on and did the whole thing. So when the match was over, you'll see him stand up and he's shaking his fist.
Classic
But he's really
footage.
shaking it at Robert Fuller, because Robert was the booker. But I like them kind of matches. So, you know, Tony could do with Billy Robinson. I believe Billy Robinson was the first MMA fighter before they had MMA fights, because he could wrestle, he could box, he could hook, he could shoot, he could do it all. And now it's two different sports, MMA,
Hey,
whatever.
but Bill, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that didn't last very long, did it?
What's
The
that?
Robert Ford booking?
Oh,
I heard, what was it, he walked out kind of the hillside, and they looked one night, and Jerry said, Robert, it's not very good, is it? He said, it can get worse. But the next week, he was gone.
Who's got, we can talk 10 hours today. Who's got some questions?
I was going to ask, October of 1979, did any of you guys wrestle in Marion County, Kentucky?
Yeah,
Wait a minute, wasn't a trick question. The reason why I'm
I
asking
remember we
is,
had 3 cameras on that.
well, the reason why I'm asking is my mom just said my father was a wrestler. I knew that was good. Are you looking for dad up here?
By 79, I was already fixed.
Sorry.
My thing is, I think all roads lead to Memphis. Me and Lance had a conversation, or I posted something. Before there were, you know, guys wearing IFBs, which is an earpiece. Somebody back in the back will tell you what to say, what to do when you're going to break. Lance didn't have that. You're doing live television in the 70s. 20 years before Monday Night Raw was even thought of. I mean, Memphis was decades ahead of its time when it came to television.
Actually, the question I wanted to ask is, Jerry, you obviously wrestled a very long time before you got your announcing gig primarily. What did you learn from Lance in that time, or what kinds of things did you learn from Lance watching him do the job for so many years as a fan and as a wrestler as you got into that?
You know, I'm sure that, like you said, being a fan of Lance's work over the years had some influence on me, but I didn't consciously pattern myself after anybody. I started doing the announcing like 25 years ago or something like that. Not because I wanted to. I mean, I've never enjoyed doing the commentating. Certainly didn't get in this business to be an announcer or commentator or anything. It happened, and during the Monday Night Wars, I was having wrestling matches with Bret Hart and Roddy Piper and freaking Ultimate Warrior and different guys. And Vince was doing the color commentary, or not the color. Vince was doing the play-by-play, and Macho Man Randy Savage was doing the color commentary. And so that was the way it was on Monday Night Raws. And one night, without any warning and anybody knowing it, we were about an hour away from getting ready to start the show, and WCW came on an hour before Monday Night Raw, and somebody yelled at Vince, "Vince, come here and look at this." And we walked over to the TV, and there's Randy Savage, he just jumped ship and was all of a sudden on WCW Live. And for one reason or another, I don't know why, Vince just turned to me. I mean, like, he didn't want to. He was like no emotion. He no-sold it to us, to everybody. He had no emotion. He said, "King, would you do the color with me tonight? And then I'll have somebody else do it on a regular basis by next week." Just letting everybody know that, hey, nobody's irreplaceable. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll have this guy replaced by next week." So that's how I stepped in to do that, and I've been doing it for 25 years since, But I mean, so I always tried to look at it as trying to talk. And I think this was one of the things that I did subconsciously get from Lance and Dave. Lance and Dave had such a good rapport and such a good relationship. I always thought it was like two friends sitting there watching the match. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I tried to do it, as like a wrestler watching some more guys wrestle, but just talking to a friend like we were sitting at home watching it on TV or something. So that's the way I always looked at doing the commentating. But yeah, I'm sure it was some influence from Lance.
Can I ask a question of Jerry? Yeah. This is a question and answer thing. You have got to tell me, finally, one time, what in the hell was the script behind you telling me to come by your house, and I come by there, and you're sitting out front, and you acted like you were drunk as cootie brown, man. And what was that for? I didn't understand that.
That was in order to get a match with Bill. He would not give me the match. Now I think that was Jerry Jarrett was booking that, I believe.
Yeah.
And I told him, he said,
I think you're right.
Yeah, he said, we're gonna come over to your house. We're gonna send Lance Russell over because we haven't heard from you. You were supposed to be at TV, and Lance is gonna come to your house looking for you, and you're gonna be laid out in your front yard drunk in a stupor. And I said, Jerry, I've never even touched. I've never even been sip of alcohol in my life. He said, I know. That's why people really believe this, that you're so frustrated, so upset that Bill drove you to drinking. I said, okay. I don't know if I can act drunk or not, but anyway, that was the deal. He wouldn't give me the match, and I pretended to be drunk and then of course when you finally did agree to give me the match, then I straightened up and I sobered up. I was not drunk anymore. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, I thought it was because I was late and you just took my place.
Probably. That may have been it too. I did my best Brian Christopher impersonation.
And Billy, I want to know, how in the world did you ever put over this stuff of putting your wife's hair
That was
in a match in there? I know somebody else wanted to know.
That was kind of like the let's run him over, there's nothing left to do with Eddie bringing it up. He brought it up, he said, what are we going to do with you two? You've done it all, and he just shaved my head. Remember the week before, I was sitting there balding.
But first you shaved, I had Mickey Poole, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Mickey Poole.
Done him, yeah.
That was the ultimate thing leading up to anything you could do was shave somebody's head. So
yeah, so Mickey Poole got his shaved, so then we did the match, and whatever we did in the end blow off was I got my head shaved. So we were trying to figure out, come back with something, or how we were to get out of it. So the same thing with him, Jarrett, and me sitting there talking, what the hell are we doing Monday night? I think Jerry said, well, we could put Beverly's hair up. Jarrett, oh, you think you'd go for it? And he looks at me and well, I don't know. I can go home and ask.
But then a money figure was discussed.
Money figure was
He he said she might if she were paid enough money.
Yeah, so anyway, the thing, so I go home and I said, leave me there. I said, I go Louisville, but the day was Tuesday, so we go to the next, I said, hey, you think you could go for a haircut?
Like she's over here cooking, right?
Yeah. So anyway, we talked for a bit, yeah. So then we shot the angle where she come and slapped it, and that made her happy and all of that, so then we did. Then the guy wouldn't cut her hair, he was scared to
Oh,
death.
my
The
Lord,
barber,
wasn't that funny?
he thought people were
Not
right,
her.
man, it was.
Mr. Leg, H.G. Leg, was his
Yeah,
name, the old barber that
H.G.
cut
Leg.
Oh,
everybody's
he
hair.
was scared to
And he
death.
didn't cut her hair?
And
No,
saying,
they kept unplugging the shears from the fans. They really thought they'll never cut the woman's hair or they'll cut Lawler's hair. And I think they came to see that happen. And when it didn't happen, they were pissed off and they were going to have to cut Beverly's hair. And it just never happened.
but it kind of was a reversal, Bill, was my opinion, from standing next to Mr. Legg, who was sweating worse than anybody I've ever seen in my life. He come out and say, cut it, go ahead, cut the hair. He's standing there with the hair out. He's got the scissors there, and he's kind of giving it, you know, cut the hair, will you? And the crowd did two ways too, because the crowd started out in that thing. They were saying, "Hey, get her hair, and all of that." And then he didn't cut the hair, and so the crowd started saying, "We're getting screwed tonight. They paid their money, get it." She lost. She's gonna get her hair
not
cut.
cut her hair.
No,
And
just
then
one left
they
said
got
they just snipped that.
nasty.
He was scared to
I
death, the
mean,
barber was.
he was.
Yeah, but let me tell you the nastiest they ever got over a haircutting.
Oh.
It was when Handsome didn't show up?
Me and Hank, oh, he showed up, but we,
In the
like
wheelchair,
you said, you
too,
had to build, when you build these matches up, the final blow-off was hair against hair. That was the ultimate. The ultimate embarrassment was being shaved bald.
Yes.
So finally it got to me and Handsome, and he had the long blonde hair, and I'd never had my hair cut. And so I was booking then. And I said, I can book a hair versus hair match with me and Handsome Jimmy, and nobody will get their head shaved. And I said, oh, really? And so I came up with this thing. We get ready for the match, and I go out to the ring, and we had a complete sellout at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. And suddenly, were you in a wheelchair?
No,
It's crutches.
No,
Suddenly,
yeah.
here comes Handsome Jimmy out on crutches. And everybody all of a sudden smelling around. Oh, wait a minute. Handsome Jimmy gets up in the ring, he's got a doctor's note, right? And he hands it to Lance, and it says, this is an Handsome Jimmy's doctor, and he slipped on ice or something at the airport, fell, sprained his ankle, is unable to wrestle. Handsome, I'm sorry, brother, I really wanted to do that, but I can't. And I'm standing there, I'm going like, what do we got to do, Lance? And I turn my back on Handsome Jimmy. He drops one crutch, he picks up the other crutch, wham, breaks the crutch over my head, knocks me down, put the boots to me and everything. And then, you pinned me, didn't you?
No, we grabbed.
Oh, they
cut your hair. We started cutting your hair.
Yeah, then he grabbed scissors and he just started snipping some of my hair.
But like the barber was doing Beverly.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you said if you take some of it, my hair, then they'll be satisfied.
They'll be satisfied, that was it.
And that's
They'll
what-
see a hair cutting,
Yeah,
right?
that's where he busted the windows out in Coliseum, wasn't it?
No, that's what
Thanks
they
for
made
telling
him.
me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Got broken.
Yeah.
And Jared had to pay for it.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what, I figured they'd be satisfied with a little hair snipping. And maybe if we'd have done it the other way around, they would have been satisfied because they wanted to see Jimmy get his hair cut. But anyway, then they came out, pulled Jimmy off of me, and then they took me back to the dressing room, and the people then realized, I think we just got screwed. So they proceeded to set chairs on fire in the Coliseum. They busted out the big glass doors down in the concourse, kicked out doors and everything. About $12,000 worth of damage to the Coliseum. At that time, that was a lot. And then, of course, we were responsible for that. And I think Jared took the book back over. Like Robert Fuller deal.
All right, that's a perfect segue. I mean, there's 1,000 stories that I want to hear you guys talk about, but that's a perfect segue into the hair versus hair match. You, Tommy Rich, Austin Idol, and you got posted. And it was at the time, whenever I was a kid, it's the most brutal thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. And for those who don't know, he was laying on his back, and one guy grabs one leg, and one guy grabs the other, and they pulled him into the ring post, and it moved the entire ring. And I couldn't even imagine how you pulled that off, even now.
He wasn't but half the man he used to be.
I don't know, I think I've told this story in my book, but, you know, you talked earlier about, I couldn't be somebody's father in 1979, but thinking about 1973, I had a vasectomy, right? And so, in about 1982, I was remarried to Paula, and Paula got on this, I think Jerry Calhoun was our best friend, and his wife, and he had babies, and all of a sudden, all these friends of ours were having babies.
And you wanted another little boy.
And so I wanted another little Brian so bad that I agreed to go and have a vasectomy reversal. Now, vasectomy is just a piece of cake. I mean, I jogged home from mine. It was like nothing. A vasectomy reversal is a whole totally different ballgame. But I knew I was going in for this vasectomy reversal on Tuesday morning, and so we did the wrestling match on the Monday night where I got pulled into the post. And then Tuesday morning I was in having surgery on that region, and so it just furthered anything that you could do to further these storylines, to top what happened last week. We would all do it. I mean, you know, if somebody was going to buy a new car, you know, you didn't go out and buy a new car. You won it in a battle royal. It was just all sorts of things. I was going to have surgery, so I came up with the idea of getting myself pulled into the ring post. I mean, just, you know, last week, or a couple of weeks ago, JBL was going to have to go and have surgery for a hernia. And so they dumped the desk over on JBL, and then he was out the next day having surgery. And it was just part of it was all part of, this is the way this business has always worked. If you're going to do something, hey, let's make money with it.
Who ended up with the $10,000 bill?
Oh, what was it?
Remember they had that battle royal for that $10,000 bill, or whatever. They had a Corvette deal when they won the Corvette deal.
I don't remember that one. 10,000. Somebody, Austin Idolcaster.
That was Ward. What was his name? Ward, the Atlanta guy.
Yeah, down in the Atlanta, Georgia territory. Of course, you know, we would say we'd have battle royals all the time. Women are going to get $10,000, $5,000, and apparently, a promoter wrote a check out and put an Austin Idol won the battle royal, and the next morning took it to the bank. Yeah, Fred Ward.
So I've got to ask this. Jim Cornette tells a story about seeing Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart in a shoot fight in the locker room, and you were there, and
naked.
Yeah, he says that you might see where this is going. You were in the stall, and he ran out the events and came back, and you were there. But history has not recorded whether or not the king wiped. Can we get that?
Well, that's not a true story. He embellished.
Oh,
no, I was literally.
Embellished?
Yeah, you can imagine that. I was literally standing. I had just gotten out of the shower. You know, I had just had my match and just gotten out of the shower, and I was standing in front of a sink and a mirror right there, and I hear this big ruckus, and literally, legit, these two guys, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, came crashing through the wall. I mean, it was just like the plaster wall. These guys ran each other right through the wall, and had to be pulled apart. And I've been around 3 fights, real fights in the locker room in my career, and every time I was naked. One time in Louisville, Rip Rogers and Lanny Poffo. Well, no, Randy came and joined in, but it started out Lanny and Rip Rogers. And I was in my room naked, and these two guys came busting in the door and fell up underneath the thing there. And then another time, Jackie Fargo got mad and slapped and started fighting with somebody back in the Jonesboro days, you know. but I had no clothes on then.
You know,
But no, that was a little bit embellished.
You know, one time we was in Evansville and King was there and I was there and I had a little satchel and I'm just drooling a little picture. I can't draw nothing, man. and King said, Handsome, what are you doing, man? I said, I'm just drooling. He says, come here, let me have that. And he said, what do you want on here? I says, oh man, do my baby, you know. I was a new lady then, Angel, and he says, you got a picture of her? And I did. I had a picture of her and me together, so I gave it to him. He says, go on upstairs. I know you want to sell your picture. Go on up. He says, I'm going to work on this, and I'll get you something nice. So, man, he did. It was beautiful, man. Me and Angel on it. It had the Valiants on it, and she had wings coming out, man. I mean, it's beautiful. Well, he's in his birthday suit again. Now, he's naked. He's sitting there. This is great. So he's sitting there all this time, and I stay upstairs until the first intermission's over. Then I come back down, and I stay down and see what's going on and work from there. So when I come back down, and everybody's around there watching him do this, he's fabulous. Everybody knows what an artist he is. And he says, I just got it done, Handsome, just in time. And I said, oh, man, brother, man. Well, at that time, we was doing Polaroids, and I brought my gimmicks back with me, and I got a Polaroid. I said, oh, Kingfish, man, hold that up. Let me take a picture of it. You just did it, you know? So he's naked now. He's sitting in a chair, and he holds it up like this and smiling. And I go, boom. And then he said, oh, God, oh, come here, give me that picture. Oh, no, you can't take that picture. And I says, don't worry about it, Kingfish. I didn't get your family jewels. True story, man. True story. I got the satchel today, and I got the picture that I took today. But I just got this from sitting there, sitting up, man.
We had some great stories in Evansville. Remember you and the doctor?
Oh,
I was
yeah.
playing downstairs.
And that was playing today.
I saw that on,
What was it?
We used to have get a physical. Indiana or Evansville had an athletic commission. That was one of the things they were supposed to. Athletic commission was supposed to send a doctor to all the matches. They would take your blood pressure. Supposedly supposed to give you a physical. This poor old guy that came out, and I'm sure they paid him next to nothing, but he was there every week. This little old doctor and
religiously performed his duty.
And one week I said, Lance, let's have some fun with the guy. So Lance, Lance came to Evansville to cut promos to do the interviews of the wrestlers. So he interviewed the doctor, right?
Well, yeah, that's because Jerry said, would you come in here and help me with this and interview the doctor? I don't know whether we want to continue.
So anyway, the poor doctor, he thought he was really, he was on TV, man. This was his big chance. Yeah. He's seen us on TV every week. Now he's getting interviewed. So Lance asked him a few questions. He said, oh yeah, these wrestlers, you know, I've got to take care of them. Some of them get hurt and I'll check on them and all this stuff. So then I'll come walking in and I said, Doc, sometimes don't you have to check our prostate? And I've been over here. I said, go ahead, Doc, do it. And the poor doctor was like so embarrassed.
He froze. It's actually showing downstairs.
Yeah,
it's downstairs on the video.
I saw it.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I saw it yesterday. I thought, what is this?
Another thing with the doctor, we were in little cubicles, and he always had his one little cubicle, and the wall of the cubicle wouldn't go all the way to the ceiling. It was spaced about this far from the ceiling. And poor little doctor would come in, and he'd set his satchel, boy, he guarded that little doctor's bag with his life. He'd set his bag right there, and then Bill would come in, and he'd start doing this blood pressure or whatever. Well, I would go in the next cubicle and stand up on the chair, and have like a clothespins or so, I mean not clothespins, have like coat hangers, right? And I would make a long coat hanger with a hook on it. And while this poor little doctor, he'd check him, and the hook would come down and hook his bag and pick it up, and I would pull it up over and put it in the next cubicle. And he'd say, okay, Billy, you're all right. And he was like driving crazy, and I'd get him like at least once a month. Anyway,
We probably ought to, I hate to wrap it up. We could be here all day. Any other?
I'd just like to hear Mr. Russell say one more time, can we get some help out here? This is ridiculous. I see hear you say it one more time, please.
we'll break into a brawl if you want.
One more time. All right, come on, let's see if you get, hey, Eddie, can you get somebody out here?
Hey,
Thank you.
how are we going to do
Thank you
this
so
and
much,
not
guys.
even
Thank
mention
you.
Andy Kaufman?
Oh, Andy, yeah.
Was that the biggest angle that ever happened in Memphis? I mean, as far as to us, the marks, the people watching on TV at home, you know, there was all those interviews where you went out into the community and they believed it. They believed every.
It turned into the most notorious thing that was ever done in a small territory because of Andy's celebrity. It then got national publicity, and that was at a time, like you said, before internet or before cable TV. It was impossible to get any kind of national publicity on wrestling. It's just impossible. But because of Andy's notoriety and celebrity, it got picked up by all the news medias and that sort of thing. So it became a big thing. The great thing about Andy was he loved the wrestling business so much. He got involved. Everybody got involved with Andy. Handsome. Everybody became his partner or his wrestled against him and everything. He just kept coming back for more. It was just, it was great. I mean, and a lot of people didn't realize he was still involved with us down there and doing stuff right up until he was diagnosed with cancer. I mean, he was on my show one morning coughing, trying to get through an interview. I'll never forget, we were going to put his head on a body of a turkey. It was around Thanksgiving, and he's standing there going, if you put my face on that turkey, Lawler, I'm going to sue you. And he was just coughing. And then afterwards he told me, he said, I apologize for that, but he said, I think I've got sick. I just got diagnosed. I've got to go in and have some more tests, but I may have some spots on my lungs, is what he said then. And sure enough, it's just like, he went down really fast after that.
You don't. When he just shot around like Handsome until the light went.
Yeah.
He never said a word to nobody. He never said boo. He never raised his voice until the light went on.
Is it true he didn't cash checks?
Never cashed his checks.